A small place can have a big story. Kaliningrad is such a place. It is a Russian region on the Baltic Sea, but it does not touch the rest of Russia, and in fact, it was not always a Russian region. Historically, it is not Russian land. It sits between Poland and Lithuania, both of them members of NATO and the European Union. This makes Kaliningrad an exclave, a piece of a country separated from its main part. Long ago, this city had another name, Königsberg. It was the capital of a German kingdom. Many people know the name of the famous thinker Immanuel Kant, but not many know that he lived and died here. The past of this land, its German history and Soviet transformation, still shapes our world today in ways we cannot ignore. The two names tell the story of a violent century. The land itself is a reminder of how borders can be redrawn by war. It shows how populations can be moved and replaced. The region is small, about the size of Connecticut or Northern Ireland. Yet, its location gives it an importance far greater than its size. It is a military outpost for Russia. It is a source of tension for its neighbors. It is a place where the fault lines of European history are still visible on the surface. Before there was a city, there were old Baltic tribes. They were called the Old Prussians. They lived by the sea. They lived by the wide, shallow lagoon. They fished in the waters. They farmed the land. They traded precious amber from the coast. Their world was one of forests and small villages. This world changed forever in the 13th century. The Teutonic Knights, a German crusading order, arrived. They came in the name of religion. They also came for land and power. In 1255, they built a formidable brick castle. They named the new settlement Königsberg, King's Mountain. German settlers soon followed, and the town grew. Over the centuries, Königsberg became the heart of a new state. It was first the capital of the Duchy of Prussia, then the coronation city for the kings of the Kingdom of Prussia. This kingdom eventually unified the German states into the German Empire in 1871. Königsberg was a key city in this long story. Its port on the Pregel River gave it access to the sea. It rarely froze in winter. That was a great advantage for trade and for navies. The city was also a center of learning and culture. Its university was famous. Its most famous resident was the philosopher Immanuel Kant, who lived his entire life there, but whose ideas traveled the world. The 20th century brought two devastating world wars. In World War I, the Russian army advanced into East Prussia, but was pushed back. The fear of invasion remained. In World War II, the city was hit much harder. In 1944, British bombers destroyed the historic city centre in 2 nights of firestorms. In early 1945, the Soviet Red Army fought its way to the city. After a long and brutal siege, Königsberg fell. The war in Europe ended a few weeks later. The victorious Allied powers, the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union, met at Potsdam. At the Potsdam Conference, a fateful decision was made. The Allies agreed the northern part of East Prussia, including Königsberg, would be given to the Soviet Union. The southern part went to Poland. In 1946, the city was officially given a new name. It became Kaliningrad, named after Mikhail Kalinin, the Bolshevik head of state of Soviet Russia. From 1919 until his resignation in 1946, a great and violent change then took place. The remaining German residents who had not fled or died were forcibly expelled. New people came in from all over the Soviet Union: Russians, Belarusians, Ukrainians. The region became a closed military zone, a secret and heavily guarded outpost of the Soviet Empire for decades. But what about the people with German roots in Kaliningrad today? The truth is that very few remain. The expulsion of Germans after 1945 was nearly total. Families that had lived in the region for centuries were forced to leave with almost nothing. Some people with mixed heritage or special skills were allowed to stay for a short time. but by the early 1950s, the German presence was almost gone. Today, there are small groups of enthusiasts who work to preserve what is left of the old German culture. Volga Germans, other ethnic Germans from elsewhere in the former USSR, not descendants of the original Königsbergers. These small groups work to honor the old culture. They tend to the few remaining German graveyards. They advocate for saving old buildings from demolition. There are museums that show artifacts from the German past. But the city's identity is overwhelmingly Russian. Most people living in Kaliningrad today are the children and grandchildren of the families who moved there after 1945. They came from different parts of the Soviet Union to build a new life in a new Soviet city. Their memories are of Soviet childhoods, not of old Prussia. The main language is Russian, and the culture reflects modern Russian life. The Soviet authorities tried to erase the German past. They tore down the ruins of the old castle. They renamed every street and town. Churches were left to decay or were used as warehouses or gyms. But why does Kaliningrad matter so much to Russia? The first reason is the sea. Baltic port, one of Russia's only ice-free Baltic ports. Ships can use it year-round. Baltic is the headquarters of Russia's Baltic fleet. That fleet gives Russia a steady naval presence in the Baltic Sea. It also provides access to the North Sea and the Atlantic. Another reason is location. Placed between Poland and Lithuania, Kaliningrad lies inside NATO territory. From there, Russia can watch skies and seas across northern and central Europe. It can host advanced air defenses like the S-400. S-400s create a high-risk bubble for other countries' aircraft. It can also deploy Iskander short-range ballistic missiles. Iskanders can reach Warsaw, Berlin, or Copenhagen. That capability is meant to intimidate neighbors and complicate NATO planning. Kaliningrad's military presence is significant. It is like an unsinkable aircraft carrier parked inside Europe. All this matters, especially because of the Suwałki Gap. The Suwałki Gap is a 95 kilometers shared border between Poland and Lithuania, a stretch of land connecting the two countries. It is, in fact, the only land route linking the Baltic states Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia with the rest of NATO. Kaliningrad sits west of this gap. Belarus is on the eastern side, only 65 kilometers apart in a straight line. In a hypothetical conflict, Russia could try to close the gap, cutting the Baltic states off from reinforcements. That makes Suwałki one of NATO's most sensitive, dangerous points, and Kaliningrad is central to that risk. Some historians and political analysts argue the Allied decision to give Königsberg to the Soviet Union after World War II was a mistake. They point to several long-term consequences that continue to cause problems today. First, there is the human cost. The decision led to the forced displacement of hundreds of thousands of German civilians. Families who had lived in the region for generations lost their homes, lost their property, lost their heritage. This act of mass expulsion created a deep wound in German memory. Today, Kaliningrad plays many roles at once. It is a Russian port and a trade hub, but it is also an island in the middle of the European Union. To encourage business, it has a special economic zone with lower taxes. This has attracted companies involved in car assembly, electronics, and food processing. The region has shipyards that build and repair vessels and factories that process the amber for which the coast is famous. Before recent tensions, it was also a growing tourist destination. Many people from Poland, Lithuania, and modern-day Germany would visit its sandy beaches on the Curonian Spit and explore the strange mix of German and Soviet history in the city. For many years, there were special, simplified visa rules that allowed residents of Kaliningrad and the border regions of Poland and Lithuania to travel back and forth easily. This created a lively cross-border economy. However, after Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, and especially after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, these arrangements were cancelled. borders became hard again. We must all hope that a direct conflict between Russia and NATO never happens. But, strategists must consider worst-case scenarios, and Kaliningrad is central to any such thinking. In a crisis, Russia could try to control the Baltic Sea and the airspace above it. Its ships could leave port to disrupt shipping. Its jets could patrol the skies. Powerful radar air defense systems create an A2AD zone. This would make it extremely dangerous for NATO ships and planes, hindering any effort to reinforce them. Missiles from Kaliningrad could strike deep inside NATO territory. NATO, on the other hand, would have to find ways to counter these threats. Its primary goal would be to keep sea lanes open and air corridors open. It would work to defend the Suwałki Gap. This would involve deploying more troop ships and aircraft. Any direct assault on Russian sovereign territory would be an act of major escalation. In a prolonged conflict, these supply lines would be extremely vulnerable. This means that while Kaliningrad is a powerful offensive tool, it is also a strategic liability. The story of Kaliningrad teaches us several important lessons. First, borders drawn by war can create problems that last for generations. The decision made at Potsdam in 1945 solved one problem but created another. The memory of the German past and the reality of the Russian present exist in a constant, uneasy tension. Second, geography is destiny, but its meaning can change. For centuries, Königsberg was a bridge connecting Germany to Eastern Europe. Today, Kaliningrad is more often a wall, a symbol of the division between Russia and the West, and it is a place utterly depending on the political climate. Third, small places can have a big impact on world events. Kaliningrad's importance comes not from its size or its economy, but from its strategic location. The choices made by leaders in Moscow, Brussels or Washington about this small piece of land can have consequences for the security of all of Europe. Peace in Europe may depend on it. If you found this presentation interesting, like, share and subscribe for more History Explainers.